This video is going to go over basic probability, and one thing that we often ask ourselves, is it going to rain today? So the chance that something would happen is how we use probability in real life. Again, what is probability? Mathematically, the probability of an event happening, we would look at the total number of possible outcomes, and then we would look at the number of times that specific event could occur. Often it's written as a fraction, but sometimes it's more realistic to use it in decimal form in real life or in percent, like the chance that it's going to rain. We would say there's a 50% chance of rain or a 10% chance of rain. We wouldn't say there's a 0.5 chance of rain or a 1/2 chance of rain. So it just depends on the situation we're in. But in most math situations, we're going to represent it as a fraction. We can also separate probability into 5 separate categories. They are when something is impossible, there's absolutely 0% chance of it happening. So this is a percent. A decimal would just be 0, and then fraction is also 0. So I'm going to go over these with different colors. So if something is impossible, there's no chance of it happening, then we would say 0 or 0%. The opposite of that is if it's certain. When something is certain, whoops, I'm going to do that like I did the last one. If something is certain, there's a 100% chance of it happening. That means nothing else would happen but that. So in percent form, I would have 100. As a fraction, it would just be 1 or 1.0. Or as a fraction, it would be 1 whole. Okay? Then in the center, if it's 50-50, it's just as likely that it would happen as it would not happen. So that's going to be my third category. As likely as not. And that is a 50% chance, or 0.5 as a decimal, or the fraction of just anything that equals 1/2. It could be 2/4, 5/10, anything that equals half. These are the equivalent forms of as likely as not. Then in the center, this is where our really big categories are. The first one is unlikely. Okay, and unlikely is anything in between 0 and 50%. Anything in between. Okay, anything from 0 up to 50%. So this is less than 50%, but greater than 0. Okay, then on the opposite side, our other really big category is called likely. And this is the section that's over 50%, but not up to 100. So all of this in between here. Again, anything in between. These are the big categories. Most things are either going to be unlikely or likely. And so this one is less than 100%, but greater than 50%. So that, again, is where most of our things are going to occur, in these two categories. Unlikely or likely. Now we're going to look at a couple of specific examples. This one is using a basic number cube. It says if you roll a number cube, traditional or standard number cubes are labeled 1 through 6. One roll would be called an event. So in probability, we're going to be using the word event a lot. And we're trying to figure out what's the probability of these following scenarios. So when you look at a number cube, whatever is rolled on top is what you get, okay? If you were to look at all the numbers individually, we have everything 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All the numbers 1 through 6. So I'm going to list those out just so I can see them in number form instead of in the dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then as we look at these questions, we're going to be asking ourselves, looking at these 6 things. I have 6 possible outcomes. 6 total outcomes. Those are the possible things. So the first question says we want to roll a number less than 7. When you look in this list, how many of these numbers are less than 7? Well, they all are. So that would be 6 out of 6 that I could put down. That would be 100% chance. Or you could also use the word certain. And I'm going to move my number cube so I can have room to write. Okay, I can either do a fraction, I can do a percent, or I can use a word. The next one says I want to roll a number 8. When I look at this list, I don't see any number 8s at all on here. Okay, so that would be a 0 out of 6 if I do it as a fraction. If I do it as a percent, it's 0%. And if I do it as a word, it would be impossible. The next one says I want to roll a number greater than 4. Greater than 4. You have to look really careful because greater than 4 does not mean you can include 4. Okay? And this other one up here was less than 7. Greater than 4. The numbers that are greater than 4 would only be the 5 and the 6. So that's 2 numbers out of all 6. If I want to do it as a fraction, I could say 2 out of 6. I could say 1 out of 3. If I simplified it as a fraction, those are my answers. As a percent, this would be 33.3%. And then that would be unlikely because it's less than 50. Okay, then it says I want to roll a 5. When I look at this list, I only see one number 5. So I only have one chance out of all 6 of them to get a number 5. So my fraction would be 1/6. That's not a very common percent, so I'm going to just leave that one off for right now. And then again, it's less than 50%, so it would be unlikely. The next one says rolling a number other than 6. So again, we have some specific wording right here we need to pay careful attention to. Other than 6. When I look at this list, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are all the numbers that are not a 6. So there's 5 of them out of the total of 6. So my fraction would be 5 out of 6. Again, that's not a real common fraction, so I'm going to leave the percent off. This time, it is definitely over half, so this one would be likely because it's over 50%. Rolling an even number. Okay, so we need to make sure we know which numbers are even. 2, 4, and 6. When I look at my list, 1, 2, and 3. There's 3 even numbers in this list out of a total of 3. 3 out of 6 or 1/2. That's exactly 50%. This would be called as likely as not. And I'm not really sure that it's going to let me move those numbers. Let's see. I'll just write this. As likely as not for that one. Then we have rolling a number less than 5. Less than 5. That's what we want to look for. Whoops. The numbers less than 5. 4, 3, 2, and 1. There's 4 out of 6. That's also 2/3. I do know that that percent is 66.6% repeating. And that would be over 50%. So I would say that is very likely to happen. Rolling an odd number. Sometimes they're equal when you look at them. It just depends on the list of how many numbers you have. This one, there's an equal number of odds and evens, so I would have the same. 3 out of 6 or 1/2, 50%, or as likely as not. And then rolling a number that's divisible by 3. That means, can 3 divide into it if you're unsure? So if I divide by 3, so the numbers that 3 can divide into, 3 can divide into 3, and 3 can divide into 6. So there's only 2 numbers. So that would be 2 out of 6, or 1/3, and we had that one before, 33.3%, and that's less than half, so it would be unlikely. So here's another one. It says a hat contains a piece of paper, and they are marked with the numbers 1 through 6. Tell whether picking an even number is impossible, unlikely, which means it's close to 0, as likely as not, which is 50%, likely, which is close to 1 whole, or certain. So the numbers 1 through 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So my even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I have 8 out of 16, which is the same as 1/2, or the same as 0.5. So that means it's as likely as not. Because I have an equal chance of getting even or not getting even. So here's a real life example that sometimes we are asked about. There's a bag and it has stuff inside, and we're going to draw out something. There's 4 red marbles, 16 yellow marbles, 5 purple marbles, 16 blue marbles, and 10 green marbles. The question says, what is the probability of pulling out red or green? What is the probability of pulling out red or green? So this is how it's going to be written. P equals red or green, mathematically. Okay, so basically what I need to do is I need to find the total, and then I want to know the number of red and the number of green together. I would add them up. Okay, so I have 4 plus 16, that's 20. Then I have 16 plus 5. That is 21. And then I have 10 more. Okay, so if I add those all together, that's 51. Okay, so now I know my total is 51. And then it says red or green. There's 4 red. There's 10 green. So I would do 4 plus 10, which is 14. And then the total is 51. So my answer, the chance of getting red or green, is 14 out of 51. That's also definitely less than half. So I could also say that this is unlikely if I needed to use the word form. I don't know what percent that is exactly, but it's definitely less than half.